All right, we are doing a fifth segment now of my Texas Dreamin Lightning Record Page Best Practices. And we just finished talking about a makeover and your goals in a makeover, and then strategies for dealing with two different kinds of records. And what I want to do now is show you those two different kinds of records on mobile because they work great. So those two kinds of records were a working record and a long-term record. So let me show you those in our beta app. I'm going to switch to our Salesforce app, and I'm in our app launcher, and if I wanted to go to the release pages, I would go to our SIM home page. But since I have been invited to make use of the better pages, I type in beta, and you can see that I have a beta app and an inventory beta app. This is our test ground for the trial pages. We don't make data model changes here, and we don't make automation changes here. All we're doing is testing out the best way to present it and the best way to have the wizards on the page work. But that can be done fully independent of the released pages, and that way we can allow users to do live data tests and daily data tests, and we can invite additional users to it in production. So I hope you will be able to use this method. You can still do your development in a sandbox and push it to your org, but you just have this beta, or some other people have suggested calling it A/B test app. So I'm going to go to our beta app, and then I'm going to go to a SIM event, which is our attendance app, sort of our case, if you will, except it's a group case. So here is the Night Porter app that I showed you on desktop, and so we're going to open it up, and we have some dynamic buttons here across the top. We can tell where we're at with the title. We have some dynamic buttons at the top that allow me to create a new client or add a new volunteer. I have a path component at the top. I incorrectly marked this as held, and I'm actually going to be doing this evening, so I changed it back to planned just now. And since it's planned, you might notice that one of the dynamic buttons went away. I'll do that again. So in the held status, I actually have a dynamic button here called process, but since we're not needing to do that, and process is part of the quality control process. So I have the path component, and I notice that I can show some additional, field guidance is provided here, and I can edit it. But notice the path component takes up quite a bit of space. I have the highlights, report, and hide tabs. And remember that those were tabs on the left third originally. So now if I wish to see if I've set up the highlight field data right, I can see that it has the right name and the right person in charge, and the staffing is right, the date is right. I haven't set the general notes or the items needed. Perhaps there won't be any, so I can go back, and I'm right back where I started. I can look at the report for this, and since I already added one person to it, I can learn that there's one person there, and I can learn about some of the other things we track. And this is just a flow creating a textual summary of the related records so that I don't have to go searching all over the place to find those things. It can tell me in a more human readable form. This way it's much simpler for the user on desktop and mobile. The assistant exposes that flow, and it's exactly the same flow as we had on the desktop, and the way that the tab turns into sort of an expanding menu is very satisfying, and you'll notice that the wizard is taking up the full page. It seems pretty decent. And then this related component. This is the least satisfying on mobile, but in fact, we have chosen components that work perfectly on mobile. So here is the client attendance section. And you can scroll and see the entire set of lists. Notice this isn't a card with just a few items on it. This isn't just a submenu pointing to a related list that shows cards. This is every field that was showing on the desktop still here, and I even have the buttons. I can remove this or change the markers or edit it. This is the enhanced lightning grid component at work. It's a very good component for showing list views on desktop and mobile. Highly recommended. I can even sort and filter. And now the tabs that were underneath the client. So here's my relate client attendance list. And that may be what we call this eventually. We may call it lists. But I have some actions that I can take. I can add a new client, or I can add in bulk. I showed you that on a previous thing. So here it is, exactly the same. The very same wizard is still prompting me for the same information, and it just works great. Or the hours and eligibility wizard is computing and checking over all the people who are checked in to find out their current balance of points, kind of frequent flyer points or something like that. It's really reward points, and what they're eligible for that we limit. So all of that's here. Likewise, when I see a volunteer this evening, I can scroll down here on my phone and click the walk-in button, and it's going to open up the creation of a new record for volunteerism, and then they will appear in this list. And then when they leave, I can check them out and record how many hours they were there. So everything is here and works just great. And I can add a note, and it will appear down here in the notes. So I can work with this record until I'm done, and then change its status to held, and eventually it will go through our quality check status and be marked as completed. And so all of that works just great. Now let me show you the other record type, contact. Now contact is a much harder, it's a long-term record, and remember that we have different purposes. But here we are on mobile, seeing it. We have these dynamic buttons across the top. We can send me an email, call me. We can add another connection for me. And there are more of these that we can do. You see my picture, and if you didn't think that's a very good picture, you could take another one. The app is right here. I can upload another picture, and it'll just say, do you want to take the photo or do it from your photo library or from your files? I could delete this photo. And here's the text that we're seeing. You're seeing a practice here. We decided we want to add a compact highlight panel substitute here because we might like to see the phone and number and email here. The compact highlight panel takes up far too much space on mobile, so we're not choosing to show it, but we're going to add a little panel here of a few key fields on mobile only. That's why you didn't see it on the desktop. Then we'll see the advice. If we have added any notes, kind of long-term items, we can do that here. Notice tags don't function on mobile, so they're not being shown here. You still find out that I'm a lapsed donor. You still have sub-menus to help me or look at my donor summary or edit my donor basic information. I'm a lapsed donor volunteer, but you have options for my volunteer involvement. If I were a client, you would have options for my client involvement, but I'm not. So all of that's going on. If you're interested in my connections, here they are. And again, you can see my affiliations and my relationships, and they are fully scrollable. Everything here, I can edit them or delete them. I can add them, I can filter and sort on them. They're not cards, they're not hidden another layer down. It's really wonderful. I can page through. This is the enhanced lightning grid at work. Works really well. And so I'm on that tab of showing that. I can also go to the activities or lists of activities, and you can see my donations, you can see my volunteer hours, and notice that I have not yet converted this donation list to enhanced lightning grid, so you're seeing what the related list, single related list does on mobile. It just tells me I have some and I have to go down deeper, and what I'm going to see are cards. When we replace it, we're going to have the satisfying result of seeing a table of text that we can scroll around and see with action buttons. Much better, in my opinion. So that's how you can handle these longer term records. If you have done a path component, you may I find that a lot of times for these long-term records, I may want to put the path component at the bottom. It shows up in the bottom of the screen on desktop pretty nicely, and your users very quickly learn that they can just flick to the bottom. On mobile, flicking to the bottom is not nearly as painful or onerous as it is on the desktop. 2 flicks and I'm at the bottom, and I can see my path and change it, and that might be very reasonable. We are actually we're entertaining the idea of having a path component on our contacts to show somebody who's sort of in qualification stage and active and inactive and potentially, a candidate for archival even. So we are considering a path component for that purpose. All right, so that's kind of what dealing with long-term records looks like. You would be doing the same thing with accounts. You would be doing the same thing with products, other things. If you're a large company, you'd probably be doing the same thing with your user records. So anyway, I'm going to stop now because that pretty much covers it. Our next segment is going to be about what I found out about mobile and what works and what doesn't. And we'll go from there. So tune in for the next segment if you're interested in mobile. Otherwise, we've probably finished the design best practices for Lightning record pages, and I appreciate you watching. Bye.